Good news, everyone! Talking Futurama is coming back for Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2.
Fresher than a summer ham, this podcast comes every Friday. And if you sign up at the $5 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you can hear each episode as it goes live.
That's right. Sign up today at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons for $5 to hear Talking Futurama every Friday throughout the rest of 2020 and also all the previous episodes we've done so far.
So head over to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons now, or we're going to clamp you.
Shut up and take my money.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, the podcast that's a big, fat, hairy deal. I'm one of your hosts, Alameda County Gravy Champion Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and I'm always finishing my breakfast lasagna before this podcast.
All 5 of them, and today's episode is a Garfield Christmas.
Garfield, wake up.
Good morning, John.
No time for small talk, Garfield. It's Christmas morning, and you know what that means.
Of course I do. Christmas means presents. Lots and lots of presents.
They're both very caffeinated in that clip. This Christmas special aired on December 21st, 1987, and presumably for like 20 years after that as well.
Man, 5 days before Christmas. That is late for in the 90s. They started getting earlier and earlier.
I prefer that because when you're a kid, you're super excited. Christmas is almost there. Like watching a Christmas special on like maybe November 18th, it sucks because then you realize I got 6 weeks to go. What's going on?
I guess it's to have a new thing that close to December is like a dead period for TV back in the 80s.
It's true.
Like, yeah, you wouldn't get a new episode of anything. So at least getting a new Garfield special was nice. But I pitched doing this one because I think every December we try to do at least one holiday special tune on this podcast. And, you know, last year we did the Peanuts Christmas special. Why not return to good old Garfield, who we last did for the Halloween special.
And last year we did the Charlie Brown special, correct?
Yes,
and unlike that one, this one is secular.
Yeah.
There was not a mention of Christ or the Bible or God.
Well, there is. They do say grace.
Oh, okay.
They don't say God particularly.
We don't know who Doc Boy is praying to. They could be a pagan family.
He's praying to Allah. That's but this special, it does live in my heart like Christmas, in that I watched it 8 million times growing up. I think I saw it the second year of it because I saw what it was partnered with in 88, and I really remember that. So I don't think I saw it in 87 when I would have been 5, but I definitely saw it in 88 when I was 6.
What was it partnered with?
The California Raisins Christmas special.
That was probably my first viewing. What an hour of television.
Yeah. I mean, it was taped off a TV by my family. Like it was, at 89. You can see it setting the stage right now if you want to talk about the Henry videotape history. But
Tale of the Tapes has returned after a long hiatus.
In 88, we had the VCR. And so on comes the combo of an hour of Garfield Christmas and then the California Raisins Christmas special. We taped that. And then a year later, we tape The Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire in 89. Yeah. And so this one is burned into my memory. The only thing it's missing is those wonderful claymation dinosaurs talk to me right after this one ends.
Those are so great. Yeah, I think my history goes way back to the late 80s like you, Henry. And I think the reason I like Christmas so much, and it's okay if you don't, people have valid reasons for not liking the holidays. I totally understand that. I love them, and I think I was indoctrinated by specials like this. And it's like, no, Christmas rules. Here are all the reasons why.
Yeah.
And it gave me like a model for like, oh, my Christmas should be like this.
Yes.
That few Christmases actually lived up to.
No, I was piecing this together, and the bit about putting the star on the top of the tree, I did that in my family. I was the one who was very like into putting the star on the top of the tree. But I remember that independently of this special, and now I'm starting to think that because I saw this special when I was 6, I was like, putting the star on top of the tree is so important, and we definitely need to do that.
I was very much into tree protocol. I was the tree decorator because my family realized, oh, he's into it. Let him do all the work. So I got to do that.
Yeah, and this special, I think, taught us both about like how what is Christmas to our families. It is constant traditions that you're even kind of getting sick of, but you must do it because it's like, well, we do it every Christmas, so we got to do it. Like my family, the Gilberts, in my youth, we had all these kind of traditions too, like that weren't the ones from this except for the tree thing, but it was about family specifics and just repeating them. Yeah. And God, I just had this memorized for the longest time, this Christmas special too.
And this is an interesting Garfield special because Garfield is like incidental. He's really just observing all of these little sketches about family. And this is not a complaint at all, but there is no conflict in this special. It's just a bunch of related sketches about Christmas. And I had false memories of this special where when you first meet Grandma, spoilers, when you first meet Grandma Arbuckle, she's kind of mopey and stuff. That's all an act for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
She's rock and roll grandma right after that. In my head, for whatever reason, like, oh yeah, Garfield shows her the meaning of Christmas when she finds the letters and then she remembers that somebody loved her. It's like, no, she's perfectly fine the entire time. There's no first act. Where are those letters? I'll never find them. Like, it's just a bunch of like nice scenes of people getting along for the most part.
Yeah, I think this is when you can really tell how this is a type of special they don't make anymore, which is one really written by the creator of the series. And Davis, I think, had so much control over it that he's like, no, it definitely feels like no real writer was brought in to partner with him of like, okay, that's a nice idea. Here's how you turn it into the normal 3-act structure of a Christmas special. Like, here's the danger. Here's
Garfield meets Santa.
Yeah, there's none of that. I feel like the dream opening too is supposed to be like a parody of, oh, is this what you thought a Christmas special is? Well, you're not getting that.
And I also liked it because Garfield and Friends would air right after this, like in '88, right?
Yes.
This was a brief taste of the Arbuckle family and like deep Arbuckle lore, which I treasured because this was so rare. Like, you didn't get this in any other form of Garfield. Like, who is John? Where did he come from? What's his Indiana backstory?
It's kind of forgotten unless you are a Garfieldologist of reading all the old collections. But like, John Arbuckle started as a Jim Davis stand-in. Like, his original job is, I'm a cartoonist and I live with a cat. And then Garfield says, hey, I'm a cat and this is the cartoonist I am. Like,
that's like literally the first strip, right?
Yeah. And the Arbuckle family is his family. He's John Arbuckle. It's about him being a loser with women, all that stuff. Like
this big shot who moved to Indianapolis away from whatever farm town in Indiana it came from.
Jim Davis is a really interesting guy. Still with us, knock on wood. But yeah, I guess why don't we do a truncated version? Because this is also when we return to a subject we've covered before, much more in depth. So if you want the full Jim Davis to Garfield history up to 1985, listen to our one about Garfield's Halloween adventure from 2 years ago. But the quick version is, you got Jim Davis, cartoonist, hits it big in 1978 with his comic strip about a big old fat cat who is bored with life and a real troublemaker too. And he got his first full special in 1982, made by the same people who made the Peanuts specials and had been doing so for like 16 years at that point, I think, by 82. And then, so his first Christmas special, or his first special, Here Comes Garfield, our birth years. So we are the generation of Garfield.
Right. We're not millennials, we're the Garfield generation.
It needs to be renamed that. One thing I've learned since I last did Jim Davis research was I forgot that he had a famous classmate at Indiana University. Jim Davis tells a story that he was the funniest guy in his fraternity, but his frat brothers told him, you're not as funny as this guy in the competing fraternity. He's the funniest guy on campus. And that man's name, David Letterman.
Oh, wow. I forgot they're both Hoosiers. And who could forget Mike Pence wishing Garfield a happy birthday?
Yeah, it's the most I've ever identified with Mike Pence.
The only time I've ever seen him laugh.
Yes, yeah. I guess that speaks to the universal appeal of Garfield.
Even a monster like him.
And so, From 1984 onward, though, after the first two specials, the director of those specials, Phil Roman, spun off his company into his own company from the Melendez Productions with Film Roman, which got their start as the production company for Garfield specials. Like, if Jim Davis hadn't followed Roman to his own company, there probably would be no Film Roman, and those are the folks who produced like The Simpsons and almost every other major primetime sitcom in the 90s. So you can thank Garfield for the existence of Film Roman. And so Garfield was getting in the groove of yearly specials that were definitely rivaling Snoopy in popularity. And the 1985 Halloween one was the first holiday special. After that, you'd think that they'd do Christmas right after. I think it really is like the Peanuts one is such a perfect Christmas special. You never want to be a comic strip with your own Christmas special first, because how can you even compare to Snoopy, you know?
Yeah, I think that's why The Simpsons were being kind of subversive by accidentally launching with the Christmas pilots.
Yes, yeah. They trick you into thinking like, well, it's a special and maybe in a couple of years you'll get your Simpsons show. And instead it's like, no. This special was the accidental pilot. But yeah, so Garfield gets regular special in 86. In May 1987, he gets another special. And so you think that's that year's special. But Film Roman is already gearing up for big time Garfield productions. And so in 87, they do two specials for the first time ever. And their second one is the Christmas special.
What was the first one?
It's Garfield in the Wild,
Okay.
or On the Rough. It's the camping one.
Right.
But
I have vague memories of all of these like airing on CBS, but I only remember the holiday ones.
I think they definitely got replayed the most. I think the other specials, they were basically just a one-time deal and you'd get them on tape or whatever. Like that's how I saw Here Comes Garfield, or the one where he meets his mom. The later one, like Babes and Bullets, I never got to see, or 9 Lives of Garfield. I think I saw that once, like when it aired on Nickelodeon.
Oh, me too, yeah.
Honestly, because it's too scary. You watch Garfield die a bunch of times. But
That was like the most ambitious thing Jim Davis did.
And then I found out that one was too ambitious. Like Jim Davis is God at the end of that, and he blesses Garfield.
I forgot about that. Let's step back a little bit, I guess.
And the most popular one in that was the film noir short, which then they turned into its own special where Garfield has a human girlfriend in it as well.
He beat Sonic to the punch.
Yeah, though clearly it is also very inspired by Roger Rabbit. If Roger Rabbit hadn't come out in 88, they wouldn't have done Babes and Bullets in 89. That I'm sure of. But anyway, back to 1987. They're going to do a Christmas special. Davis is going to pull from his own life, as he often likes to do. For this one, he's writing in full, which I was hoping like Mark Evanier had worked on this so I could get more behind the scenes stories, but unfortunately he didn't. He only started with Garfield and Friends the next year, and he worked with Jim Davis a ton after that. I read a story from him in like 2013 of like, hey, we're working on some new Garfield ideas, so I flew up to Indiana to spend 2 weeks with Jim Davis.
And Jim Davis is like Charles Schultz in that he was doing the whole thing himself in terms of writing. Like Charles Schultz would write the entire special on his own.
Nobody would call Jim Davis an auteur, but I do think in the 80s, he really did work hard to be the voice of Garfield.
Before the Garfield factory was built around 1988.
Though Evanier also, and one of the things I did find where he's like, Evanier saying, I didn't work on the Christmas special, but I think it's really good. He also said, hey, you give him a bunch of shit for merchandising things, but I've seen him work hard on quality control and not wanting just bad things to be made.
Cut to the shot of Krusty looking at all the toys that are on fire.
But yeah, so longtime readers of the comic will know that John's family had appeared in comics to that point. When reading all the reprints growing up, I always loved when it's a small bit of history that Davis would instantly forget would appear, of like, oh, this is the first Nermal strip, or this is Lyman. Who's this Lyman guy? And the family had appeared as well. In February 1980 was the introduction of Ma and Pa. That was the first time they did a farm week of comics, which happened like every couple of years, it seemed like, where Davis was like, well, for a week, we're going to do farm jokes. Maybe it was practice for U.S. Acres.
Oh, yeah. I'm making that connection now. Duh.
Yeah, that's he has two things to draw on: being a cartoonist with a cat and living on a farm. And those are his two big hit strips. So the parents first appear in a February 1980 strip. Grandma appears in a week of strips in January 1982, though that grandma looks like classic, like Aunt May style old lady, not the rockin' grandma we get in this.
A real like Whistler's mother kind of grandma.
And Doc Boy first appeared in the May 1983 Farm Week of strips, all looking basically exactly like they do in this special. So when it came time to do a Christmas special, it made all the sense in the world to go to the farm for the first time in the show. And Davis himself explained on the production, quote, I got to actually write the scripts and got to direct the voice tracks and do the storyboards. And so I was 110% invested in all these stories. For instance, the Christmas special, that's very autobiographical. That was my Christmas on the farm. I did invent Grandma because I did want to bring a character who would bring in that element of what Christmas means to a lot of people, being with loved ones and things like that, and that more touching element to it. So there you go. That I feel like the specific traditions in here must be the real ones of the Davis family household.
I want to know what his Binky Saves Christmas book really was.
And also, like his dad, I don't know if he's still alive, but like in a 2009 retrospective on Jim Davis, they're like, James Davis, his father, still alive at 88. Like, yeah. And yes, by this time, the machinery of Garfield specials was just plowing along. So this has all the same folks as before. That includes the voice cast. You got Lorenzo Music as Garfield. You got Tom Huge, frat brother of Jim Davis, as John Arbuckle, which is perfect. Like, I love his voice.
He has so much more energy than he did in the Halloween special, which is one of the first times he was doing that character. I remember how much fun we had with, hey, Garfield, it's Halloween.
That's right.
You sure do look scary, Garfield, in your mask.
Yeah, I think Tom Huge, they're starting to find that it's more fun with Arbuckle for him to be like a dork who's just like nobody likes. I like that. He doesn't need to be an everyman. He needs to be a nerd. And he got Greg Berger as Odie and some incidental voices, and Julia Payne as the girl who just voices any women. She was cast first as Liz, the veterinarian, and now is playing the mom, which I feel like the love interest of John should not have the same voice as his mom.
Gonna hire a different woman?
I guess, there's only so much in the budget for women on their staff. And also, like, Garfield is not famous for a ton of female characters. I think once every 3 years, Irma would get a strip or something.
What's the name of the female cat with, like, the giant lips?
Arlene, yeah. To make sure you don't think Garfield's gay, you got to give him a girl.
I had that concern from the very beginning.
Though the special does have a few really good guest stars. You got Pat Harrington Jr., a.k.a. Schneider from One Day at a Time.
Oh, who's he playing? Doc Boy? Oh, Pa. Got it. Okay.
And he's really good.
Yeah.
Like, there's some real naturalness to him as just being this exasperated dad. I love that. And then you've got David L. Landers, Squiggy from Lavoine and Shirley.
I thought that was a Squiggy voice.
That's Doc Boy's old Squiggy. And living legend of stage and screen, Pat Carroll is Grandma.
Right before playing Ursula.
Yes,
that blows my mind. Those two voices are not similar at all. I cannot hear any Ursula from The Little Mermaid in this character's voice.
Ursula and this grandma were both huge in my mind as a child, and it never hit me that they were the same voice. Even though, like, if you're listening for it, yes, they clearly the same actress, but like Ursula is just so evil and different, and also so campy, and like nothing like the grandma. I looked at Pat Carroll's career. She was, a star of the stage, a professional singer. In the 50s, she appeared on the Red Button Show. Like, that's how long she's been around. But by the 80s was when she really started to transition into animation voice work. And yeah, just 2 years after that, she'd be Ursula. She doesn't do a ton of other voices, but she's one of the people who does Kingdom Hearts. Like, that's the level. If you're a voice actor who does the Kingdom Hearts, then you are a dedicated Disney voice. You're not like the one-off or whatever. There's still at least one, actually two songs sung by the late Lou Rawls. He's great, and he's usually accompanied by Desiree Goyette, who's also the composer of these songs. She's the credited songwriter on all these specials. And the music's good. I always forget how many songs there are in this.
Yeah, I feel like maybe if this was an hour, they would have given the songs more time. But I noticed that after the first song, they just kind of cut away after a verse. They're like, well, that's enough of that.
As I would find out from different airings of this, is that I think they had to make a lot of time cuts for this to make it work in the 22-minute format. Like, now the version that exists that's like 24 minutes, it'd have to air over an hour on like Nickelodeon to fit in current commercial length for things. Also, the co-director on this with Phil Roman is George Singer, who is a TV animation legend. His work goes all the way back to the Bullwinkle cartoons of the 60s.
Oh my God.
This was his first time working on Garfield, though he would work on 2 more specials after this and direct multiple episodes in the first season of Garfield and Friends. His IMDb credits kind of stop in 1992, and according to that, he passed away in 2002. 2 other folks I wanted to shout out who are on the animation side. Layout and design, we got Phil Ortiz, like 1 year before he's going to move over to Simpsons and be the designer of Ned Flanders and other characters.
I thought the name sounded familiar. Okay, that makes sense.
And there's Gary Conrad, who also worked in the story department. He directed the majority of episodes of Fairly Odd Parents, and this is one of his earliest credits. And as far as I can tell from the production, other Garfield specials used Wang as their overseas animators, but looking at the credits, I don't see any overseas folks mentioned. They mentioned a production company called C&D, and based on the names, I would assume it's either U.S. or Canada based, like based on the last names of the people. So I think this technically didn't use overseas animation, or if they did, they're not credited.
I guess it was a time when you could just sort of, wink at the audience and say, animation services by, or just like exclude the credit entirely, because we were in that era,
Yeah, but I other ones, they did mention Wang by name, so that's...
Oh, you're right. I guess they set the precedent. Maybe it was like not completely overseas or Canada or something.
Not that this is like amazingly animated. It's a TV budget, but if you compare this to animation on a regular episode of Garfield and Friends, I think it's like 10% better.
Yeah, it's a little better.
Yeah. There's a couple of really good flourishes of character acting that I'm like, well, Garfield wouldn't do that in And Friends.
Yeah, like the character animation is a step above And Friends.
Yeah, which, I mean, they had to produce 52 in a year. They didn't. They were moving as fast as they could. I was just rewatching, and we're going to do And Friends someday, I promise. I was just rewatching a bunch of them, and there was a really good one. You probably remember it, about like where they say, we're going to make sure there's no mistakes in this one. And then there's a mistake every scene in it. And I really do think it was Evanier commenting on how many fuck ups they'd get back from overseas, and they couldn't do retakes on it.
That was a good like meta episode. Like, yeah, we see them too. Don't worry. Yeah.
We know Garfield's hand disappears, or that he started talking out of his mouth for no reason, or that Odie was the wrong color. We know, but what are you going to do? So yes, this aired in 1987 and was a yearly tradition on CBS.
I love that.
Nothing
Timpani.
feels special until you hear that. Jim Davis, being the auteur he is, did a George Lucas in 1991.
You showed me this yesterday, and I was shocked.
Me too.
At the Bonthas they added to the background.
Well, because the 87 version is the one I know so well. So watching the 91 version of it is very different experience. So they updated it. There are definitely a few scenes in the 87 one where it's like, all right, we get it, they drive, or like it's the classic like driveway complaint.
Oh yeah, we got to see John parking now.
How do we know John arrived home if you don't see him park? Yeah, so they trim out a bit of that stuff. There's one big addition that they had to trim stuff to make room for, which is they ask Doc Boy to play the piano, and he plays the piano poorly, singing "Oh Christmas Tree." Then Granny shoves him out of the way, like, I'm going to show you, and she does a
her
rocket.
Boogie Woogie version.
Yeah, and then as they walk away, then it goes to the thing of like, hey, Mom, why don't you play a song? And that's where it starts in the 87 version. But I think the biggest change is to Grandma's big speech.
Yeah, they had a few more like filmic kind of shots to that scene. And I do appreciate like how the lighting is different. It's not just like the flat, stark, just regular lit room. She's like lit by the light coming in through the window. But then they do this awkward thing where she's talking about her late husband. And then in the 91 version, there's a picture of them together, and it just slowly zooms in on it. It feels a little too like manipulative. And I like in the original version that we don't see him, like the idea of him is more important than to the viewer than like an actual image of him.
Yeah, I think her story of the husband she misses and this grandfatherly force that's no longer there, it works better if you're imagining whatever you think it is, because you're probably imagining your own like late relative or something. And to zoom in on just a picture of like, yeah, it's a guy, it kind of takes away some of the power.
I guess if it's trying to make this experience like, well, this is like the every white family Christmas, I guess.
Yes,
but
very
more
white.
generally, you could be like, well, every Christmas, if you get together, there's going to be someone who's not there, right? And you do miss them. So this is just like a kind of like very broad Christmas idea. But then it's tied down to like a picture of a person. It's less special, I think.
I think so too. Yeah, I don't think the old version was such a bad tree after all. But if I'm looking at it with Jim Davis eyes, I think that he just sees all the flaws. And if you're looking for flaws in the 87 version, it's like lip syncs off, a hand disappears for a couple frames. Like there's little problems in what is the heart of the entire special. So I could totally imagine Jim Davis being like, I will pay $40,000 to reanimate this. Like, if there's no money in the retake budget, this has bugged me for 4 years. I'm going to pay to reanimate
That's
this
like
thing.
4 seconds of Garfield merch money. Like 4 seconds past, he's already made that much.
In
1980,
that's not
1991.
bad. So I think that at least I don't love the tinkering with things like this. But at the very least, it shows that Jim Davis really did care about this. And the availability of it's interesting, too, because currently you can't buy it on DVD anymore. Like, that's out of print. And the holiday specials have been delisted from like Prime Video, which I'm very confused by. But on the official Garfield YouTube account, it's the 91 version that you can watch with a bunch of like very poorly placed ads. But
Not for me, the one YouTube Red user in the world.
But many people have uploaded and it's just there on YouTube and you can watch it. The 87 or 88 taped off of television version, which I love because since I watched it a million times on VHS with all the squeaks and poor audio, it feels like my childhood, which is the only reason I'm watching this.
Any good commercials on there?
Some of them have the commercials, yeah, including like, do you remember the McDonald's Christmas thing where it was like Muppet Baby plushes?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. See,
those
that
were
I
a
was
premium item. You had to pay for those.
I remember begging my mom for those, and I had them. I at least had the Fozzie one. I remember the feel of that fuzz like it's yesterday.
Last Christmas, I was at my fiance Nina's place, and we were just chilling out. And we decided to put on old commercials. We watched old commercials for like an hour. And after a while, we were like, this is sick.
Yeah.
What's wrong with us? This is incredibly fucked up that we're like, commercials.
I mean, when you're raised by television.
It's true. It just was very telling about our upbringing.
That McDonald's commercial was preceded by the one. Do you remember the stern teacher who's tough but fair? And then they take her to McDonald's and buy her a shirt. And she's like, oh, you kids. Like,
all the fast food Christmas commercials are great. Like the one with like the ice skater and Ronald McDonald, like the little ice skating girl and Ronald McDonald.
I saw that one too.
Yeah, and the honeybee from Cheerios, giving Scrooge the meaning of Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he is Cratchit. You're right.
This is sad. This is good. Okay, but
They do exist.
yeah, and they don't even be started on those polar bears. My brother, my brother loved those polar bears so much. Like he got Coca-Cola polar bear gifts.
We had a stuffed one of those in our house, the stuffed Coke polar bear.
Yeah. So this came out. They re-released it in 91, and there's varying versions of it out there. 2 years after this in 89, they'd kind of do a sequel special to this, the Garfield Thanksgiving one. One I had memorized much less, but I put it on in the background. Now I see it with an adult's eyes. I'm like, the plot is that John invites Liz to dinner at his house, which is Thanksgiving dinner. And he's like, I'm going to make Thanksgiving dinner, which like your first date is a Thanksgiving dinner at some guy's house.
That's like, that's bad for a lot of reasons. But if you want to get romantic, it's not going to happen after you eat more food than you have ever eaten all year.
Well, and also like the relationship dynamic with John and Liz it was classic for the 80s, but when you look at it with 2020 vision, you're like, no means no, John. Like if she says no to you 100 times, it's not funny when you go like, I'm going to hold my breath until I pass out.
And she's just being nice to John so he won't murder her.
Exactly, yeah. Well, and also John is like constantly hitting on the veterinarian of his cat, so it's the uncomfortableness of she is forced to talk to you thanks to a business obligation, and you're using using that to do it.
It's also like the only woman he has access to in this world.
Yes. And then sadly they got married later on, so it shows it works. Yeah.
I missed this continuity.
They've been canonically married I think at least 5 years now. I think Jim Davis finally was like, John can't be a sad bachelor for 50 years.
You can't draw any more jokes of John going out in a leisure suit with like a medallion anymore.
Oh yeah, in the early 90s he was still dressing like a 70s swinging bachelor. But the reason the Thanksgiving one is more of a sequel is because Granny shows up in the middle and saves Thanksgiving by secretly making a great Thanksgiving meal that John passes off as his own and really impresses Liz. Granny doesn't appear in Garfield and Friends, though the family does occasionally. Still voiced, like David L. Lander still voiced Doc Boy when he appeared in the CGI Garfield show from the early 2010s. Yeah. Here's one more big change that has happened since we last did a Garfield podcast. April 2019, Viacom buys Garfield. Garfield is now a Viacom property. It had been like mom and pop owned by Paws Inc. since its creation. And now Jim Davis, he still is going to draw the comic strip. The comic strip, yeah. Hey, I still want it.
You were sending me comics, over Twitter, showing me like different Garfield stuff, and I actually went to the site and I was just like, when does like the factory take over? It feels like 1988. There's like a direct change. Like Garfield becomes the most marketable looking character ever. The art changes drastically compared to the other Jim Davis stuff. I feel like that's when he stopped. Was the late 80s, like right before this,
and I think
after this. Sorry.
I think they got such a collection of Garfield clip art that they're just like, well, we don't need to draw. Why am I drawing again Garfield like eating or Garfield listening? Like, I just can put the stencil here, like, boom, here's Garfield listening.
You've determined what the cutest Garfield is.
Yeah.
What year was that, Henry?
My belief is the cutest Garfield is 1983 Garfield. He still walks and acts like a cat occasionally, but if for a joke he needs to stand on his hind legs or wear a hat, he'll do it. But he doesn't have the giant human feet or big human hands yet.
Yeah, I like, well, I mean, they do have to cheat in this, and he does have human hands at some point, but not all the time. Like, occasionally he can achieve cat form, like he should at all times.
Definitely by 95 is when Garfield fully just became the, like, freak that he has been ever since. I mean, yeah, so I think 83 Garfield, this mid-transition from fat blob monster original Garfield to famous Garfield, I like the 83.
You know what? It's the Yoshi story. It's what happened to Yoshi.
You're right. It's exactly like Yoshi. He was pure and good, but he had to become too commercialized.
He had to throw eggs, just like Garfield.
So yeah, but Viacom bought Garfield. Davis will still do the comics until he feels like not doing the comics anymore. But Viacom owns Garfield entirely. I think that's why some of it's been delisted. Though others, lots of Garfield is still available, and they own US Acres for all that means. And for years, since 2019, for over a year, Nickelodeon has been teasing that there will be more Garfield, and like they've done like social media stuff. Hey, here's some Garfield clip art next to SpongeBob, huh? And while they've been working on a Garfield, something new with Garfield, it's not been announced like what it is, what it'll look like. I wonder how they're going to approach it. TMNT, they did redesign them quite a bit to give a specific stamp on their TMNT. So I wonder.
I feel like that's verboten because Garfield is like a Mickey Mouse style icon.
Yeah.
And he has to look a certain way.
You can only change Garfield so much till it's not Garfield anymore. But yes, we'll be waiting with bated breath, I guess, in 2021 to finally see what Nickelodeon's Garfield shall be. But this now special, Jesus, 33 years? Yeah, geez. Oh,
I just hope for the future of Garfield they find a new voice actor. I'm not, only Lorenzo Music could play him in my opinion, but I'd like to see them find someone better than Frank Welker. Frank Welker can do anything.
Yeah.
He can't do this.
He does it fine.
Yeah.
He does it fine. And I definitely think with Davis and Evanier, they just wanted to keep it in the Garfield family. They're like, we worked with Welker a lot. He can do great. And so they just get a guy who's like, okay at Garfield. Like, they really do need to just find another Lorenzo Music, which is like such a specific, unimitatable voice that will be Garfield for 40 years or whatever. Just find another one of those.
I say let's cast Kevin Murphy as Garfield.
you got to invest young though, Bob. You got to
that's
find
true.
some 20-something.
He is in his 60s.
Is there a 20-something that even sounds like that now? Like I
I don't know. They're all living pretty hard lives, those Zoomers.
That's true, yeah. But they need to be like tired and acerbic like that. That's the key part. But all right, that is the history of a Garfield Christmas. When we come back, we're going to find that elf on Christmas Eve. So listen along and have some fun.
A Garfield Christmas, sponsored by McDonald's. It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's.
It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's.
Hey, welcome to the break, everybody. Henry Gilbert here, and I brought up 5 different types of potatoes with me.
Hey everybody, this is your other host Bob Mackey, and don't tell Henry, but his present this year is a back scratcher made of garbage I found around my house.
I can't wait. Oh boy. And thank you again, as always, for listening to this week's episode of What a Cartoon. We're only able to do it and cover classic Christmas cartoons and other cartoons like this one thanks to our supporters at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
If you want to join all of our cool supporters there, please go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and sign up for $5 a month, and you'll get to access all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, and also you get to access everything we made behind the $5 paywall for the past 3.5 years. That includes all of our limited miniseries, which includes Talking Critic, Talking of the Hill, Talking Mission Hill, Talking Futurama Season 1 and Season 2 Part 1, and currently unraveling, we have Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 2 rolling out through the end of 2020, only available at the $5 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. There was so much going on behind that paywall, interviews, end-of-season wrap-ups, and deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons, but also, if you sign up at the $10 level, you get all the $5 stuff, plus also access to one ultra-long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob, you're talking about the What a Cartoon movie, the premium version of this very podcast you're listening to, where we cover animated feature films in the same hyper-focused and in-depth way that we cover animated series. We have done so many classics. Last month, our most recent one was the Wallace and Gromit movie, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. A real classic there. So much fun to talk about. A stop-motion original from DreamWorks. And before that, we did Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, Aladdin Return of Jafar, Space Jam, and tons more before that. Over 2 years of What a Cartoon movies are open to you if you are a $10 and up subscriber at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. So many great ones there, and you get that in addition to all of the $5 stuff Bob mentioned, a treasure trove of listening content for you.
And if you've never joined Patreon before, it is so easy to do it. Once you sign up, you're given a code that you can access at any time you want. You just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts, and that way you can listen to our bonus podcast alongside of your normal free podcast as part of your podcasting lifestyle. And also, Patreon has an app for any smart device you might have. The app works great, and that way you can listen to our bonus podcast that way as well. But either way you do it, it is so easy to access all of the bonus content waiting for you at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So thanks again for listening. Now grab your preferred slice of pie that your mom made you and listen to the rest of our chat about Garfield Christmas.
Thursday,
Merry Christmas, City Slicker.
America's favorite fat cat is going home for the holidays.
Gadgets, toys, greed.
A Garfield Christmas. Then, your favorite Christmas Eve story is back.
Happy Christmas to all.
Share the merriest holiday classic ever. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas after Garfield Thursday.
Just when you think all your presents are accounted for, that's the time you gotta ask for more. Christmas is my favorite time of year, 'cause that's the time I get my Christmas cheer. So give me. I'm gonna shake all the goodies right off the tree. Come on, gimme. Yeah.
Things, stuff, gadgets. gadgets, toys, greed, avarice. I love it.
Okay, we are back for the Garfield Christmas special. I really love how this one starts because it feels like a parody of a Christmas special that if you were tuning in for the first time, you're like, what's the Garfield Christmas special? Oh, just loud noises, bright lights, like dun 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 dun.
And it's drawn by children.
Yeah, and it looks like shit.
I like how like the sort of like Yoshi's Island kind of stylized backgrounds. They're just drawn with crayon. Crayon. I said crayon.
Yeah, you mean crayon.
Crayon.
You drew it. And then when you know that it's Garfield's dream, it makes sense that it would be stylized in that way. And I like that in his dream, John is a double dork wearing like a stupid elf costume.
He like clicks his heels and stuff. He has this high energy John. Again, this is not the sleepy Halloween John.
Well, in this dream, John does everything he's supposed to, which is not even complain about waiting on Garfield hand and foot. Of just like, hey, no time to waste, Garfield. Time for lasagna, and then it's all your gifts.
He's got some Binky energy.
Yeah. I guess it helps. It's the closest that we get to Binky invading this. Like, nobody likes Binky. I was rewatching old Garfield and Friends, and every time Binky came in for a plot, Garfield like apologizes. He's like, I'm sorry, Binky's in this, or I lost a bet, Binky's in this episode.
Friends of the show, We Hate Movies, on their Animation Damnation podcast, they did an episode of Garfield and Friends.
Yeah.
It was a Binky related one, and they looked it up. He actually didn't appear that much.
Okay.
And I kind of liked his hey kids kind of thing, where he just made everyone mad.
You know what I think it is? That Jim Davis loved that he's an annoying character, and then network executives are constantly saying like, this guy's annoying, stop having him. And so Jim Davis snuck him in wherever he could. And maybe in this he was told, you absolutely can't have Binky in this, and no hey kids. He's like, okay, Binky won't appear. I also love fistfuls of lasagna thrown in his mouth, like that constantly reused animation of Garfield eating lasagna and just the throwing sound of it, like love that.
Again, but cats should not be eating lasagna, folks.
Absolutely
Don't let them have it. I know they want it, clearly.
5 tins of lasagna again. I mean, it would hurt the little kitty's tongue. Poor little kitty cat. In Garfield's dream, though, he eats his lasagnas all the way to the Christmas tree, and John is going to present his gift. I like the animation of Garfield biting his fingernails. That's fun too. And he reveals it's a Santa chair, which is a really great design of like a 50s looking scary Santa robot, like, or also kind of like the Japanese Santa robot that John has in the Simpsons.
Annual Gift Man.
Yeah, Annual Gift Man. Yeah. I love like the creepiness of the robotic movements of the Santa and the mind control hat basically for the wishing. Like it's really fun.
Okay, Garfield, you wait right here while I get your gift.
Now that's what I call a Christmas gift.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, Garfield. Here, let me show you. Now watch this. This gift-giving machine can read your mind. Whatever you think of, it will give you. Observe.
Fun animation of it popping out gifts. I think it's definitely a very Garfield dream that he would get a gift that is all gifts ever.
This does feel like a second era of Garfield to me when he's into just like crass capitalism. And it feels like more of like the merchandised Garfield where you see the poster of like the classic 80s like Gordon Gekko Garfield poster. It's him just surrounded with crap. And I think it's like the person who wins dies with the most stuff. I think it's like the most 80s Garfield poster. It's why the terrorists hate us.
You're right, man. You're right. Garfield is a sign of our decadence, isn't he?
But before he was just like, I want to sleep and I want to eat, but now he's like, I want gadgets.
Yeah. I must have everything. I mean, it is after he became a commercial spokesman. Like, that's what happened. The richer Jim Davis got, the more Garfield was into buying things. I like that even in Garfield's dream, he imagines John as such a dork that if he could wish for anything, it would be a stupid hat to complete his elf outfit.
A little Peter Pan hat.
Then Garfield, he shows you what you should really do with it. His first thing is jewels, which is like, if you could wish for one thing, something that's worth a bunch of money, I guess, is a good one. And then the song begins as he's just summoning all this other stuff. It's a nice little Lou Rawls song, posed like all the other openings for the Garfield specials that preceded it, of just monocolor background and Garfield dancing to a Lou Rawls song.
And he's like diving in the gifts like Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah, God, and all the stuff that comes out, it's all that would have been on your wish list in the 80s of just like, oh, what is modern decadence? Like a big boom box or a large television.
No video games though. That let me down.
Yeah, you know what? It should at least get out an arcade machine.
But the weird thing is Garfield didn't have many video games until much later.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he didn't really become a gaming guy until the 64 or 32-bit era. It seems like Garfield Kart should have happened a lot sooner than it eventually did. The song you were telling me before the recording, this is your favorite song in the special?
Oh, no, the second one is.
Oh, the second one.
Because it feels like more, I mean, it is like the musical song. It's not just a song that's playing in the background.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's the best song. That's my favorite song, too. This one, it's nice. It's just about like, gimme, 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 which, like you said, a very late 80s type of song for sure. Though, if there was supposed to be an arc in this for Garfield, you start with this song and then he realizes that he's being too selfish or whatever, but that's not really, Garfield doesn't go on that. Really.
Yeah, there's no like Christmas lesson. They avoid that very common trope where Garfield has to learn like, this is what Christmas is about, Garfield. I guess he kind of does, but he just kind of shrugs it off at the end. He's just like, yeah, Merry Christmas, get out of my face. When
Garfield does a nice thing later, it's not after he learns a lesson. He's just like, oh, hey, I found this thing. It'd be nice if I gave that to someone. Like, yeah.
He's not a monster.
It's unconnected from it, but once that song is over, Garfield is woken up to crushing reality.
Are you ready for this, Garfield? It's Christmas Eve morning. We're going to pack up our presents and go to the farm for Christmas. Won't that be fun?
You got a real sick sense of humor, John. You know that, don't you?
The whole family's going to be there. Dad, Mom, and Grandma, and Doc Boy.
And good boy, and bad boy, and old boy, and attaboy.
Come on, Garfield. We have a busy day ahead of us.
Why is it every Christmas I get drug out of my warm bed just to see some stupid old relatives? And why is it I always have to go to the stupid old farm? Why can't they come here where my warm bed is? And why am I whispering?
Good question, Garfield.
Yeah. No one can hear you. That's part of the fun.
And if you've never seen Garfield, he doesn't talk in the conventional sense. He thinks.
Yeah, which allows ADR whenever you feel like it and no lip sync. I wonder if that's really why Phil Roman was like, this is the one to go with.
The most affordable character we can animate.
Well, and the rest, when there is lip sync in this, there's definitely a lot of like, it's just off. Like there's not the best mouth movement matching in this. This is classic Garfield of like John saying like, isn't that exciting? And he doesn't know his cat's dunking on him the whole time in his head. But I also like, he's like, listen carefully, John, I don't do pop quizzes before breakfast, okay? And yeah, I also think Jim Davis, this wasn't in any of my research, but I know at the time Jim Davis had young kids when he wrote this. So I'm thinking Garfield in some bits here like this are his kids who just go, I don't want to visit grandma and grandpa on a farm. I don't care. My bed is nice. Make grandma and grandpa come to me. I think that's what it's coming from.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize his kids were of that age around this time.
I know in the 80s he had at least one son. I know that. So I'm wondering if him pulling from his own childhood, he grew up on the farm. He wasn't mad that he had to go to the farm. I think he's subtweeting his kid who didn't grow up on a farm, who's like, farms suck. Like Jim Davis, he loved the farm growing up, though apparently he had asthma, which is why his brother, I believe, is just Doc Boy and inherited the farm, the family farm, and Jim learned art instead. It's because he had really bad asthma, and so he learned to draw when he couldn't be doing the chores. Yeah, if you're a regular reader of the comics, all these Arbuckle references, they were a real treat. Like, I like that it actually was basically the same.
It's funny that in these earlier cartoon specials, it was a lot of paying off things in the strips. So the context is missing. It's not quite as strange as just like an entire cutaway to the Red Baron for no reason. But this is just like, yeah, you're going to see more of these characters that were hinted at or barely seen. You're going to get an entire like special about them.
Yeah, you're right. In the Charlie Brown stuff, it's like you're finally going to see the little redheaded girl or whatever that's been talked about this whole time. Or, hey, you've read comics where he plays baseball, but now you get to see Charlie Brown actually play baseball in animation. Also, during that whole scene, you can hear an instrumental version of the original Garfield theme, Here Comes Garfield. Here comes Garfield, yeah. In the first airing of it, it was sponsored by McDonald's even. In the with commercials version on YouTube, it kept in them going like, "It's Garfield, brought to you by McDonald's."
That's the perfect Garfield sponsor.
Well, and
this character encourages gluttony in children.
I didn't realize those. I loved my glass Garfield mugs that had him like, they were basically comic strips printed on a mug.
Oh, these are very familiar to me.
I didn't know that they were a McDonald's thing. I had totally forgotten they came from McDonald's. I drank out of those mugs for the longest time as a kid. I loved them. But in this viewing, it was in 1987 when those mugs went on sale. 69 cents with a meal.
You were like, gimme those mugs.
Anyway.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at these mugs, and I don't think I had them, but friends' houses had them for a long time.
So they get in the car. This is where in the 91 version, the big cuts start to come in. They spend a lot of time driving around. I like that Garfield, just the setup of them, the three of them in the seat, barking Odie, Garfield sitting to the side and John driving.
And leaving the city, whatever city that happens to be.
The city. I just love hearing John talk about like so earnestly about how much he loves things and Garfield just going like, that sucks. Lame, boo. And it does, I had one of those moments of like where when I saw this as a kid, hearing John talk about like all the smiling kids with their love of Christmas and you with your own memories of being a kid at Christmas time. Now I know the experience of watching this as a child and now being honestly older than I assume John Arbuckle is.
John's got to be like in his early 30s here.
I guess whatever age Jim Davis was in 1987, let's say John Arbuckle's that age. I also like that Garfield is negative towards Christmas in a different way than the Grinch and Scrooge. Like, he actually loves the avarice of it.
Yeah. But like the work that goes into making the event happen, he does not like.
He doesn't want to drive somewhere a long time to be with family.
And you're right, like this is like a kid's perspective. Like, I just want like the food and the gifts.
Yeah.
And usually mom and dad take care of everything else for me.
If you want to have grandma and grandpa have fun with us, how about you make them come to me? Which is definitely the child response. You don't think about like, hey, maybe it's really hard for grandma and grandpa to travel, much harder than for you.
It's icy out.
Yeah. Do you want to kill grandma and grandpa coming to your place? Like, plus your grandma and grandpa, they're very set in their ways. They don't want to sleep in your bed or some guest bed or whatever. It then comes to the best song about it. The Can't Wait Till Christmas. This is my favorite song too.
It was in my head like for the past 48 hours.
Yeah, actually, let's cut it in here.
I think the best part is watching the faces of children and sharing the memories of being a child at Christmas. I remember when my brother Doc Boy and I were little.
Oh, brother, here we go again.
Dad would chop down the tree.
Chores.
Mom would fix up the meal.
Work.
Doc Boy would get in the way.
Fighting. Big fat hairy deal.
Decorating the tree.
Gardening.
Wiring all of the lights.
Electrical contracting.
Wrapping boxes and writing out cards.
Office work. Out of sight.
Then we'd take those presents and pile them under the tree. We'd barely get a wink of sleep, wondering what they could be.
The special gifts of Christmas that really make it great.
It's so great.
Are the insomnia and the anxiety kids get from having to wait.
Can't wait till Christmas. There's so much to do. Can't wait till Christmas.
Wake me when it's through.
I always sang along with this one. It was my favorite song as a kid too, like, because I love just the pattern of it of like John sings something earnestly and then Garfield like
one
undercuts
word.
it.
Yeah, with just one word.
Yeah. Oh, so great. But the one part I always sing along to, and I got the extra clip for it here.
I bet I know.
The special gifts of Christmas that really make it great.
It's so great.
Are the insomnia and the anxiety kids get from having to wait.
I forgot how much singing Lorenzo Music did.
Yeah. I can even just see it in my head. Garfield's finger motions like insomnia.
So even the gift part of it comes with a negative side.
Well, it's that Garfield is a real grouch who's just like, I can find the negativity in anything. And so it's like, yeah, kids are loving Santa Claus and they're filled with anxiety and insomnia.
I also like how Odie is also singing on this song. Like there's a few like musical barks peppered in after some verses.
That's another of my favorite bits I always love singing along with. This is just going to be me saying like, I have nostalgia, but I really
do. And it's going to be to pull back the curtain a bit. We're in mid-October and it's like 100 degrees out. It's like the 5th heat wave in the Northern California region. This has made me psychotic enough to miss the Midwest.
Oh, wow.
It's like, I want to see snow. I want to see like long stretches of nothing when you're driving on the highway. It was making me very nostalgic.
A streamer I really liked named Joe Hartzler. He recently got so fed up with living in LA, he like just moved to Ohio. We can start a podcast house, like me, you, and we'll just buy a house in like the cheapest part of Ohio and ask like 10 other podcasters to move in.
I'm from that part of Ohio.
I'm just thinking of Ohio because that's where Hartzler moved to. But we can make Youngstown the podcast capital of the world.
They'll have to alter the sign. And by the way, Ohio is next to Indiana, in case you don't know about that part of the world. So it's essentially the same landscape and the same kind of curse.
Same old, yeah. I guess, is that why all this spoke to you, especially, Bob?
Oh, definitely, yeah. They'll have never been to Indiana, and I won't go. I won't go back there.
Not even drove through it in like a family trip or something?
Never. There were no family trips.
Oh, okay, yeah. I forget you didn't like fly on a plane for the longest time.
Not until I was 17.
But yeah, so they arrive at the farm. Garfield's like, okay, I'll stay in the car. Like I'm not even getting out.
There's all these like again, it's such a weird like cozy setting and premise where there's a scene of like just John coming in saying hi to his mom and hanging his coat up, and there's no joke.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, these people like each other. That's nice to watch.
Yeah, it is interesting that maybe that's more of the Midwestern values of Davis, where he's like, there's definitely a few jokes about like passive aggressiveness within a family, but mostly it is just about like, yeah, they love each other and say hello.
It's all like the aggression is always playful for the most part.
There'd be more dark history in this family for them to overcome in a more dramatic Christmas special. But here it's just like, hey, let's meet the family.
Now behave yourself this Christmas, Garfield.
No problem. I'll wait in the car.
Ho, ho, ho.
Merry Christmas to you too, honey. Oh, it's so nice to see you. Here, let me take those packages.
Hi, Dad. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, City Slicker.
Doc Boy, how's my favorite brother?
Don't call me Doc Boy. And you've probably forgotten I'm your only brother.
Oh, you're right.
And that basically is how they're first introduced in the comics, too, of just like, hey, Ma is overly doting, Pa calls him a city slicker, and Doc Boy doesn't like being treated like a little brother still as an adult.
Yeah, and like a lot of these jokes you were showing me are just taken right from this comic strip, like a lot of these setups and punchlines. But I do like the dynamic it sets up, despite this being Garfield. It's a very realistic dynamic in which John is the guy who left, and Doc Boy is the one who stayed behind, and he is like so much more put upon because of that.
I know, yeah, because you stayed. Your parents have been parenting you for too long. You've had no taste of freedom. So when you come home, Doc Boy's like, hey, screw you. You got to escape. I didn't.
I'm the one who got to escape in my family.
Me too, though my brother eventually escaped as well. But yeah, I have been the John Arbuckle coming back home to see my brother, who I don't call Doc Boy, though. These no-nonsense farmers, they should really judge John for bringing his cat with him. It's like
what's your problem?
Yeah, it's like leave a gallon of water out and a bunch of food and your cat will be fine. It does not need to come along with you. I understand bringing a dog with you on a trip, but your cat can stay home. Honestly, your cat would prefer to.
Yeah, it's not going to like that car ride.
Yeah. After my lovable grandma passed away, My mom inherited their super cute albino cat. And they did take the cat on trips with them, and it was just like a nervous wreck of a cat, this poor kitty. But eventually he calmed down, and he had a wonderful remainder of his life. I love that cat. See, also, this makes me like get teary-eyed just thinking about cats that are no longer with me, and it just makes me sad. Anyway, let's have some fun with Grandma.
Don't mind me. You can visit till your lips fall off for all I care. I'll just sit here in the dark, alone, until you decide to come over and pay your respects. Nobody gives a hoot about an old woman like me anyway.
How could I ignore my favorite girl? Merry Christmas, Grandma.
Oh, Merry Christmas, John.
How have you been?
Oh, I've been doing okay, considering. What's this, John? I see you're putting on a little belly. Is that city life making you soft? Ah, you're getting soft, boy. You need to get more physical. Take me. I do 100 sit-ups every morning. My belly is hard as a rock. Come on, hit me right here. Give me your best shot.
Grandma, you remember Garfield, don't you?
Well, I'll be. I remember back when all we had were wood-burning cats. What do they think of next?
Bizarre.
That is directly taken from the strip, the punchline, bizarre.
Yeah, that every word of that is just the first appearance of Grandma in the January 25th, 1982 Garfield strip, so you can pull it up.
That's a pre-Bob strip.
Wasn't it fun to play that game of like, what's your birth date, Garfield?
Oh, yeah. Mine wasn't great.
Though mine was like Garfield walking somewhere, but it's looking up the newspaper that was published on your birthday, boring. Garfield of that birthday, that's good.
I think one thing we neglected to mention is that like every Garfield comic is just online.
Yeah,
along with every other comic strip, they just put them all online.
I mean, they're worthless now. Like, you're not going to sell. If you sell a book, it's to the hardcore Garfield collector anyway. But otherwise, man, in my childhood, when I prized every Garfield collection I had, to imagine that they'd all be available for free and color, they all have been colored.
They colored them all in. That's right.
Yeah, it almost feels like too close to colorization to color them, but I guess since they just fit the coloring guidelines of the Sunday books, it's not so bad. But it does feel weird to like these kids don't know that it's supposed to be black and white, and you celebrate the color on the Sundays. But yeah, it's the granny looks different, but it's even the expression wood burning cat is in that first comic strip.
And again, I forgot, like I thought the entire setup was going to be like, oh, Grandma needs to be cheered up. She's having a rough time. But no, she drops the act in like 15 seconds and becomes Fight Club all of a sudden.
I love that. I love that she is putting on the characterization of like sad old granny. No one loves her. And he's like, I got you, boy. I'm tougher than ever. And it also feels very ripped from real life of like when you come home to visit, they're like, hey, you got a little fat, huh? And enjoying a little too much of that food in the country. And just having like the unwanted attention of an older relative, like touching your gut and making you feel bad.
Or asking about like potential romances.
Yeah. That's
like when are you getting married, all that stuff. I'm surprised that didn't factor into this, but I guess John wasn't quite there yet.
Well, it's funny. The second ever Mom Arbuckle comic from 1980 is that joke.
Okay.
The joke, her first words are eat, 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 because she's overfeeding him as she does in this strip. But then in the second strip, John goes like, please, Mom, stop trying to feed me. And she's like, okay. Hey, when are you going to find a nice girl and settle down and give me some grandkids? And then he goes, you know what? I will have that pie, actually. And it makes a better joke that avoidance of discussing his love life with his mom is why he shoves food in his mouth with her. And yeah, Pat Carroll's performance as this rockin' granny is really great.
It makes me miss my rock and roll granny. I had a similar spunky grandma because her husband passed away before I was born. So she was pretty independent from her like mid-50s onwards.
Man.
So she was a rock and roll jeans and sneakers wearing granny, taking bus trips across the country.
My paternal grandmother passed away right when I was born, like right around when I was born.
She saw what was coming, Henry. I'm kidding.
No. And instead I had my grandpa, who was nice enough for, being an old Arkansas grandpa. But then on my maternal side, I had a grandma, but she had remarried and they were traveling around. They were a traveling grandparents, those pair. She was a former teacher. She was great. I
also had a rare non-religious grandma.
Oh, Oh, wow. Yeah, mine too.
I think
Mine
secretly
too.
an atheist, but she never talked about it.
You're not allowed to be that
Yes.
explicitly for her generation. No, meanwhile, like the only grandma I ever knew, she was a lot of fun, but just she was a weird grandma in that she was like an NPR grandma who would just say non sequiturs. But if you ever ask, like, hey, remember this growing up? Like, if my mom asked that, my grandma would go like, nah, not really. I know. She had no time for nostalgia of the kids growing up. It was so weird.
She was the anti-Henry then.
Pretty much, yeah, actually. Though definitely I get the sense that all her kids were raised by TV as well, just like me.
It is weird that I was thinking a lot about this, and that like John's memories are tied to like family events, and his nostalgia is that sort of thing. When I think our generation is more tied to the nostalgia of entertainment.
Yeah, I think so.
Like when our parents were growing up, when our parents were raising us, they weren't like watching the movies they watched as kids, or like I'm going to collect all the Star Trek figures I like. Like they weren't not doing that, but we're doing that now.
Yeah, I think the closest I had to that are like, oh, if I started to drift towards watching like Adam West Batman on TV, my mom might say, oh, I remember watching that as a kid, but it wasn't about still enjoying it as an adult.
My stepdad wasn't taping Johnny Quest and stuff.
No. And telling you like, hey, did you hear the news, son? They've got a new Johnny Quest coming real soon. Yeah.
But that makes us a better generation, I think.
That we know all this stuff and care that much.
Yeah, we love entertainment more than people.
Yeah. Well, this was another thing I noticed for the first time in this. Like, there's not one joke about the family watching TV. Like,
yeah. Is there even a TV in this?
I don't recall seeing one TV. Like, I feel like other shows would have done a joke of like, oh, your pa, he's got to watch the football game. Like, these farmers are so traditional, they don't even watch television at all. You know, that's crazy. I feel like I'd see other things about like, well, yeah, the old dad's watching the Rose Bowl or whatever. That would be my childhood. But there's not one TV. I think that's just how rural the Davis clan was.
Yeah, they got the family piano. That's all you need.
Yeah, your family piano and the one book you read every year. I also really like John's relationship with Grandma and how she goes like, I'm doing well considering. Like, that's a very loaded considering that that is a very Midwestern thing of like, well, I'm clearly not sad. No.
She's masking her emotions.
Yeah. I guess the term wood burning cat is like a wood pile cat or whatever. Just like the cats that are on the farm that are like half wild that you don't even like name. It's just like, yeah, it's one of the cats.
That's a better interpretation than me thinking, did they burn the cats alive?
I hope not.
But you're right. It's like wild like woodpile cats or whatever, right?
That's what I'm assuming.
Like Banjo or whatever.
Don
Bluth's special, Banjo the woodpile cat.
Yeah, that is how I choose to think of it instead of like the cats they burned for warmth on the farm.
Maybe that like this. We could be looking too much into this, but maybe she's like misspeaking. Instead of saying woodpile, she's saying wood burning, and that's why Garfield's like bizarre.
Maybe, yeah. Especially saying bizarre is just like, what the hell? It is an odd thing to say. I also do love the small bit of tension between the grandma and the mother because you can tell she's mother-in-law to her and that she can do. Like, honestly, grandma doesn't even like living with them, but she's like, well, I guess I got to eat your crappy gravy. I make way better gravy than you.
These are old values, and they're both competing to serve the men.
That's right.
Who will serve the men better.
It's very old school for sure. There's a quick little scene of them going out in the snow, and I liked jokes about Garfield's tail sticking out, but I know real cats. No cat would take 2 steps out into that snow.
No, you see those. I see these every winter. It's just like, oh yeah, Mittens thought she'd go outside, and just a picture of like footprints, like 2 that are going out the door into the snow, and then the rest coming back in.
I know. Well, because cat paws are so sensitive. The second they touch something, they're like, ah! Like, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you can find some weird wild cats on Twitter videos that love the snow, but your regular old house cat, especially a fat orange house cat like Garfield, wouldn't walk in the snow at all. Though I do like the little meta joke of Garfield going like, I don't think this can get much worse. Clang. I got to stop saying that.
He hits that water pump.
He knows it's asking for trouble in a comedy to say things can't get much worse. Yeah, I also love in the kitchen the mom and the grandma fighting over who makes the best gravy. Like that is a very white and rural Christmas stress that comes in. I like that a lot.
Although she's anti-bland food. She's ruining this Midwestern cooking with her chili powder.
That's true. Seasoning it all is the granny.
Oregano.
I think that shows you the granny is very worldly, that she even puts an ounce of seasoning in something.
She knows about the fabled chili pepper.
I think, too, that shows you how white bread this whole family is. They're just like, well, yeah, it's the sausage gravy, meaning the gravy of a sausage. The end. Like, no extra. Putting salt in there would be, you'd be inviting the devil into your home.
Just the meat drippings.
Yeah, so there's this little subplot with Odie that starts coming in here where Garfield's like, well, John asks, hey, where's Odie? Garfield's like, who cares? Let's eat. Like, Odie is disappearing throughout the whole special, and I think you're supposed to wonder, like, what's Odie doing?
Yeah,
what's his plan?
That's the only tension in the special, I think, the mystery of Odie and what he's doing with these mystery objects. But it's not like a sense of danger, but it is like the one element of the story that just like connects throughout.
It is the part that works the least for me. I think in my first viewing as a kid, I didn't even really notice the dramatic tension of it. And then in every rewatch of it, I'm like, all right, all the Odie stuff, I know what he's building, so it's boring.
Yeah.
Though also on any Garfield and Friends that were like, whenever they'd have an Odie short that was basically dialogue free and there's no Garfield, always my least favorite ones. Like, Odie isn't interesting to me.
And they don't have the animation quality to carry like a silent character for 11 minutes or whatever, or 6 minutes or however long those cartoons were.
You got to have Lorenzo music like crapping over everything. And you can't just have, this is nothing against, Greg Berger, awesome voice actor, a legend in his own right. And I love all of his noises as Odie, but
he's the voice of Cornfed. We love him.
We love him, yeah. And Grimlock of the Transformers. Like, he's living legend of Greg Berger. I wish him many more Christmases. But yeah, so they come back in the kitchen. When Garfield puts his hand in the gravy, I was like, unless it was my favorite cat, even then, if a cat put his paw in the gravy, I'd be like, well, that gravy is gone.
Going right down the drain.
Yeah.
Cat paws notoriously clean.
Yes, I mean, they're licking them all the time. They gotta be clean. Then as dinner is beginning, this was another time I noted something that was like special for the Garfield things. And Evan Ear on Garfield and Friends was a big champion of this. He wanted crosstalk. Like in US TV animation, Evan Ear said this up until Garfield, the ones by like especially Hanna-Barbera and Ruby Spears, they were editors, and so they thought about like, well, it's harder to animate if there's crosstalk, so dialogue has to be clearly sectioned off. But Evan Ear and Davis loved the chaos of like, no, when people talk, they're talking at the same time. People talk over each other. You get that a lot at the saying grace scene here at the dinner table.
Doc boy, will you say grace, please?
Oh, Mom.
Doc boy.
I never know what to. Lord, we just want to tell you how grateful we are for this food and for letting us all be here together on Christmas Eve.
Amen.
And as surely as the waters of the streams and the rivers find the sea, let each of us find happiness and wisdom in this our... Thanks, Lord. Let's eat.
I do like the friendly playfulness of the family because he's like, all right, I'm going to ham this up because you dared to ask me to do this and embarrass myself. I'm just going to keep going.
It's great acting by Lander of Doc Boy going from nervousness into like instant grandiosity of, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm a bit of a poet. It surely has. And hearing him say Lord, that feels like a thing you wouldn't get in a special anymore, but it's like, yeah, these are white Midwestern people. They're going to pray to their God at the start of a meal. That's just culturally what they do. You can see on the spread there all the food that's going to be a joke in a second. So
the multiple kinds of potatoes and pies.
Yeah. Oh God, it really did make me hungry for mom food. Like, I loved my mom's potatoes. They taste like childhood to me. But I think back on it, it's just like, well, yeah, my mom was a busy person. She's not going to mash a full russet or skin it or everything. Just put some stuff in the water.
Gotta leave that skin on, buddy. It's good stuff. So many of us are going to be robbed of mom food this year.
Oh man, yeah.
It's going to be a weird. It's going to be the weirdest Christmas on record, I think.
I know.
And Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, I guess
we're before that, by the way.
Listeners now have experienced the Thanksgiving that was probably their preview for what Christmas will also be like.
But many of us will not gain weight for the first time during the holidays.
That's true. Maybe I did, though, still buy a whole turkey and just eat it at home over the period of like 5 days. But yeah, there's another great joke about grandma hating her daughter-in-law's cooking, that she just won't touch it and feeds it to the pets. Like, I love that. And it's played so broadly, but I do like her saying, I'm eating for two now, meaning she's feeding 2 pets.
And Doc Boy is like astounded by this. She's like, is my grandmother pregnant?
Go boing. Yeah, they really stand on that. You know, another thing I love in the character designs, and this is from the original comic strips, but that you can see that John takes after his mom and Doc Boy takes after his dad, and then he slowly, Doc Boy is balding into the baldness of his father.
It's true. They are very similar character designs, Doc Boy and Dad.
And it does feel very natural the way the mom is played, of like, no, it's not much, but I'm glad you like it. Like, just clearly the mom worked very hard and wanted compliments, but she has to go like, oh, well, it's not much, but I'm glad you like it.
No one can be sincere.
Don't take too much pride in yourself. That would also be a sin, I believe. After dinner, it's time to decorate that old tree.
Just listen to him, Garfield. All jawing at once like a bunch of banshees. Crazy, isn't it? Of course, to make it through this whole life, you have to be a little crazy.
You said it, Grandma.
Why, just look at me. I talk to cats.
Careful, Dad. Don't hurt yourself.
Why is it we always put the stupid star on last? Why don't we put the star on the top of the tree and then put the tree up?
Well, it just wouldn't be Christmas if we put the star on first, honey.
Hey, Garfield, come over here. Garfield, I have a very important job for you. It's a dangerous assignment, but if you succeed, you'll be a hero.
A hero. I like that.
I want you to take this star up the tree and put it on the top.
Climbing trees is my life, sir. If I'm not back in an hour, send a banana cream pie after me.
I do like the instrumentation in this.
The militaristic A Christmas Tree playing underneath it.
With the timpani drums. Like, yeah, you know, Garfield and Friends was pretty blatant in how many library songs it just pulled out, and it was not often original instrumentation. But this special, they do it quite a lot. Old Christmas Tree is used in like most of the background music.
Yeah, well, it's a free song.
That's why Christmas specials are so great. You save so much money. Yeah, the granny speech to Garfield, I talk to cats. That's the January 26, 1982 strip, just word for word.
But I talk to cats is the big punchline.
Yeah. Though she doesn't have a cackling laugh, which that Pat Carroll laugh like, ha ha ha. Love that. Love that. You know, I thought it was in this one, but I got it mixed up with it's the Thanksgiving special where she literally comes in on a motorcycle.
Okay. I was like, was that Doug Funny's grandma? But that's also her.
It's both grandmas. Yeah. Putting the star on the tree was a tradition in my family, and now I'm questioning if that was just because I watched this special and it taught me.
It was pure Garfaganda.
I mean, were you a put the tree on last or put the star on top last?
Oh, for sure. And I still do it. I have a little tree I put up every year, and the star goes on last.
Man, I should get a tree this year, especially since I'm not going to be going anywhere.
My tree's like maybe that big, so like 16 inches tall.
Oh yeah, 2-foot trees. All I'm doing here, and I tell you, I had at least one every year. Another Christmas tradition with the family, and this is Garfield consumption, was to go to the Hallmark store in the mall and buy the new Garfield Christmas ornaments.
Oh, man.
And put it on the tree. And it became something, you know, after 10 years of it, it's like, wow, that's the Garfield we bought in 96. There's the 97 Garfield. Like
so many Garfields, so many memories.
Garfield and Christmas is very connected for me. But now I'm really thinking it's because I saw this when I was 6 that I thought, a star has to go on last.
You know, it is funny to think of how much TV worked on us, despite me thinking like it's not a bad influence or it's not an influence. It's like everything I learned was from TV.
Yeah. Now, in our 20s, especially when we worked in the video game field, it's drilled into you of just like, no. Television doesn't make you do things. It doesn't do that. And then I get older, I'm like, well, I did buy that because TV told me to. And I thought that because I saw it in this cartoon.
Like, this was my identity because I saw it on TV.
And I is that wrong or bad? I guess. But what you going to, like, I can't change my childhood.
I turned out TV.
Also, I had like a family fight about this. At age 10, my little brother in school made a tree topper, and our old star was just like probably a $2 thing bought at Big Lots. It wasn't that special, except it is just the one I always knew, so it was a special star to me. But my brother made a new tree topper that was Santa Claus, and so that was going to start being at the top of the tree, and that made me so mad every year because I saw it as my mom picking my brother over me.
Little brother supremacy is happening in the household.
And also like a rejection of my childhood. And I just got so mad about it. And now I think back, I'm like, why did I care so much? It's a shitty little star. Who cares?
For like an arts and crafts project in school, it was like one of those, like, we're running out the clock before Christmas break. Everyone just make ornaments or whatever. So everyone made these angels you put at the top of your tree. And I made mine look like Butthead from Beavis and Butthead. It was perfect. Like, I got the hair perfect for this weird stuff you put on top of like the little wooden knob for the head.
That's awesome.
And then I drew the face perfectly. I had a reference, and my family was like cool with it. I had like a butthead angel on top of our tree.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful story, man. But again, that's TV telling us to do something.
Yeah.
We did it. Once Garfield goes up to the tree, there's a cute little thing of him triumphantly getting up to the tree, then getting scared, and then getting it on there and falling down. I also do like how realistic the dad is of just, my dad definitely didn't care much for traditions and was constantly like, why are we doing this? It's so much harder. That's it's cute. After Garfield falls out of the tree, get back to two running jokes of Garfield specials.
Shocking violence.
Yeah.
Whoever invented Christmas trees should be drug out into the street and shot.
Is everybody ready? Here we go.
Nice touch.
So Garfield calling for extrajudicial violence.
Yes, yeah, he's Garfield's a fascist, really. I love that in a kid's cartoon in the 80s, they could have the main character say someone should be drug out into the street and shot.
I was like reading those little comics. I'm like, there's a bit of an edge to this Garfield character. I could see why people liked him back in the early strips.
Man, the ones where he's just like smacks Odie like off the page, like those are like, wow, that's violent.
There was one I was watching, there was like this running character of like Uncle Jim or something, whatever, like local TV kid shows. You never saw him.
Yeah.
The strips were all just of Garfield looking at TV, and one of the Uncle Jim strips was him like visiting like a slaughterhouse and then getting caught in machinery.
Oh my
and presumably
God.
being like mangled horribly.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I forgot that one. And and also in the specials, every time this happened in the Halloween one, it happens in many after it, some sort of visual flourish will happen on screen. In this case, the lit up Christmas tree. And then Garfield will look at the camera and say, nice touch. Like him, like talking to you and saying, hey, we did good animation there, huh? Not bad.
I like that like nice little moment from Garfield. He's not like being crass or like shitting all over this nice moment. He's like, oh, it's cool. I like it.
He's like, I gotta admit, it's good. I also, it's stuck with me since the first time viewing. The trumpet mouths on the family going, ooh.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think Phil Merman inherited that on The Simpsons. Actually, no, Klasky Chupo did. There were some trumpet mouths. That back he was like, no trumpet mouths.
He hates those trumpet mouths.
The biggest one is in the Babysitter Bandit one. It's like, no, triple.
It's such a great animation flourish in that scene, but it also is a terrible trumpet mouth if you're a trumpet mouth hater like Matt Groening is. Here comes the biggest change of additions is the piano playing.
Piano is what the dad calls it.
Yeah, I love the dad calls it piano. I like that there's some light familial violence of him smacking his son up in the back of the head. Like, I paid for all that. Like, that is very much the let's laugh about a mean father kind of joke there. But yes, then the grandma sings and is much more fun.
Oh, Christmas tree, how lovely are thy
Let old Grandma take a whack at that. Oh, Christmas tree, how lovely are thy branches. Whoop, whoop, bidoop, bidoop, bidoop. Well, what do you think, dearie?
That was interesting.
Well, you better not touch those ivories until they've had a chance to cool down for a while. Get on down. Chico.
I like her like funky strut off the screen.
I love that, yeah. And then she's like, chicoom. Like, what a weird, like, vocalizing of that. Now it's time to pull on the old heartstrings. And they really set it up first with just the mom playing that sweet little song of Christmas is Here. You're right. It's just a bunch of generalities, but it's nice. I like it.
Yeah, it's just like the most banal, like Christmas is good and also it's nice.
Yeah, I think one of like mistletoe and laughter. These are things like Christmas. It's good.
It's like it's one of those list songs. And then they just cut away. It's like, well, this is more important. Cut away to the grandma and you don't hear the singing anymore.
And this is definitely the longest clip in that I have, but you got to hear it all. It's the grandma's entire story, which really did, even in my first watching, like it really got me. Like even as a little kid who was not very emotionally mature, I remember it. Other times I took sad moments of like, say in the Muppet Show or whatever, I thought they were boring. But this one I remember just liking as a kid.
Why, hello, Garfield. How did you know I needed a kitty in my lap?
Wild guess.
Since Grandpa passed on, I've whiled away many a lonely hour rocking and stroking my cats.
I envy those cats.
Grandpa was a proud man, a strong man. He was a good provider. We never had much money, but we always had plenty of food on the table. And he always made something special for me and each of the children at Christmas. Men like him didn't feel like they could show much affection outwardly to the children, but on Christmas, it was okay. He always pretended not to be excited on Christmas morning, but his eyes gave him away. I think it was his favorite day of the year. Sometimes I wake up in the night and I can still feel his strong arms around me. This is the night I miss him the most.
Keep Christmas here in your
I'm gonna go call my mom. I think that worked on me as a kid too, because I was like, well, my grandpa's dead. I wonder if my grandma feels this way. It is a little sappy, I'll say, but I think it's like pretty raw because she's just like, yeah, I miss this man holding me.
Yeah, like he's not there anymore.
Yeah,
and I wish a much shorter version of this is in the January 28th, 1982 strip. It's her petting Garfield and like, oh, my husband's been dead 31 years. I miss him. Like, which definitely Grandpa's death feels more recent in how it's portrayed here.
Yeah.
Like this is maybe like the third Christmas without him or something. Especially because in the 91 version, when you see the photo of them together, Grandma looks about the same as she does there. So it's not like an old photo.
Yeah, it feels like a recent. I mean, just based on the context, it does feel like it wasn't like decades ago.
Yeah. And I really just love the way she's talking about, as a kid, I'd never heard the phrase before of like, we didn't have much money, but there was always food on the table. Like that kind of old timey description of a good man. But now as an adult, I really catch it as just like, I love the way how she describes him of, well, because he was a man 80 years ago or 100 years ago, he didn't know how to ever show emotion ever. And he thought it was weakness. And so that how much he loved Christmas is because it was the one time he would drop his guard and admit he enjoyed something or felt love for his children, which is sweet but also tragic. I like that too.
There's a bit of tragedy baked into that, and the toxic masculinity of the greatest generation.
And I also just love Pat Carroll does a great job just acting this out. Like, it's
I don't know if that was in the script, but I like the I think like the two I thinks are very. It's like she's like collecting her thoughts or something. Maybe it was written in the script, but it just feels very natural.
I think there's a lot of stuff in here that just feels like natural improvisation, and that one definitely, like her just double, I think, and just like I miss him most of all this time. It's just played so well, and it works the same 81, 87 or 91. Though to me, it does really feel like, an 87 one, it's just what I grew up with. So it's the one that touches me the most. And
they are they're showing a lot of self-control where Garfield doesn't really get that much into this. Like he says one little thing, but it's not like a wisecrack. He's just like, he's appreciating this woman.
Yeah, Garfield, who cracks wise about everything, he's like, I'm going to be quiet and listen to this wonderful elder. Though watching it with the commercials version taped off TV, it was funny that they have it's Kool-Aid Man wishes you Christmas. Like, it's just so
Kool-Aid Man. A man just died. Get out. Yeah. Put that wall back together. Get out of here.
We're in mourning. But yes, when we come back from commercial, it's time for another Christmas tradition, which I also just love this Binky story because it feels very real of just the kids since they were kids. They love this thing of making their dad tell a story he doesn't like and making him act out all the parts. And it's part of the fun of, like, the Podcast Right guys joke about this, of the power of embarrass your dad on a family trip thing.
Yeah.
I think it comes from the same place of, like, you have this, stern dad who never lets you get away with anything. But because it's Christmas, you can make, for once as a kid, you can make your dad do something he doesn't want to do.
It proves that also Binky is immortal like Pennywise the clown.
You're right. Yeah, there's always a Binky. There have been Binky stories this whole time.
This is a small touch that I don't know if it's too minute to address here, but I like how they just pulled up these crappy folding chairs next to their dad. It's just like, you just bring out the crappy chairs because your family's visiting. It's just like, well, somebody needs to sit in something, right?
Yeah, because obviously dad's going to sit in his chair, and it's like, well, we're not used to company, so we just got the folding chairs. Let's get them out of the garage. Yeah. Also, Pat Harrington Jr., great job on playing this whole thing.
I'm beginning to feel a little silly reading this book year after year.
Oh, but think of the children, dear.
Yeah.
They so look forward to it.
Right, Dad.
Yeah, let's see if Binky saves Christmas again this year.
Once upon a time, there was a clown named Binky who loved children. Every time Binky saw children, he would say, "Hey, kids!"
Oh, no, Dad. Read it with more emotion.
Yeah, and why don't you say it like Binky says it?
Every time Binky saw children, he would say, "Hey, kids!" Cut that out. And once again, Binky the Clown saved Christmas for children all over the world. The end.
I don't know about you, John, but for a couple of minutes there, I was getting pretty worried.
Ooh, me too.
All right, boys.
He almost hits the height of the Greg Berger Hey Kids, which had been established by this point.
It is something to really put on Pat Harrington there. Just like, no, really scream it. Like, I think Binky's Tom Huge.
It is Tom Huge? Okay.
Yeah, because Binky's voice and Roy Rooster's voice are like the same voice.
And those are both him, too.
Yes,
okay, yeah.
But it's funny that they're like, no, there's no Binky in here, but you still get to hear us screaming, "Hey, kids!" I like, too, that John's giving his dad notes like, no, Dad, no.
It'd be great if Roy Rooster just showed up in the background as one of the many animal pals.
Let's assume on this farm is where Orson and Roy and all of them are just having fun off camera. They're having their own Christmas special independent of this. So they head off to bed. The 91 version also does a retake on the dad. In 87, when everybody walks away, he has like crazy spinning eyes, and it's like a very big take reaction. They calm that down a lot in the 91 version.
And he's just like rolling his eyes in the 91 version.
Yeah. Then we go through a long, quiet Odie sequence. Everybody goes to bed. Odie then checks that Garfield's asleep and he sneaks off. I mean, there's been a couple other quick shots where like Odie steals some string or Odie gets a plunger or whatever. So Odie's secretly been doing something the whole time. I'll admit, on tape, I would fast forward through this every single time because it's just long.
It is a bit. It takes a long time to get to where it needs to go.
Yeah, and it's just, again, when you know what Odie builds, seeing him build something takes a long time, and the song's not that great. I mean, it's just
no. The tone is so weird. Like, you can never find an elf when you need one. It's like, what are we talking about?
You can never find an elf when you need one. When you got to get that toy beneath the tree.
Yeah, when an elf is what you need, his energy, his speed, there never seems to be one who's free.
But then comes that magical moment.
So the story goes on Christmas Eve,
when elves and other weirdos
think it's better to give than receive. Seems you can never find an elf when you need one, and you don't know what you're gonna do.
But if you believe the magic of Christmas Eve, then one finds you.
Yeah, I guess, is Odie the elf they're singing about, or that it's Odie can't find an elf to make a toy for him, so he's doing it himself? I don't know.
But I think that could be it. I'm just connecting the pieces now, but it doesn't feel like it fits. It's a little too bawdy for this just like soft and gentle like family Christmas special.
Yeah. And again, Odie, you just haven't had enough time with Odie to really catch it. Oh, I do love the weird lyric of like, elves and other weirdos think it's better to give than receive.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's like a Randy Newman lyric.
I think, though, when they end the song with the magic of Christmas Eve finds you, that's when the letters fall on Garfield. So I guess that reflects like the story that's happening on screen. Garfield's not even that curious about Odie. He's like, okay. It's kind of sweet how he finds the letters. And Garfield, like you said, there's not really a journey for him. He's just like, oh, these letters. Hey, I know somebody who'd like these. That's it. Like, no lesson really even needed to be learned. I think this one stuck with me too as a child, that it taught me like, how early can I get away with getting my parents up to open Christmas presents?
Luckily I was one of those Christmas Eve families you hear about.
Oh, I see.
I think my mom realized like it's going to be impossible for these kids to get to sleep if we don't give them presents now.
The insomnia and anxiety of it, is Garfield saying about.
I think the lie of Santa was dispelled by like age 5. And then there would always be like, would they save one gift for Christmas? And I would always forget about like, oh, there's one more thing.
Oh, that's nice. That is the reverse of my family, which was Christmas Eve gift. One you can open on Christmas Eve, the rest on Christmas morning. Also, like, we still had the Santa thing going until I think 13. And then after that, we would all know we knew Santa wasn't real, but we would at least be like, oh, Santa's gifts are here in the morning, whatever.
There'd be a few gifts labeled from Santa.
Okay. Christmas morning. What defines a Christmas morning?
Dad, you awake?
Dad, you awake? Well, I'm awake now. What do you boys want?
Is it time to open our presents yet?
It's 1:30 in the morning. No, it's not time to open presents yet.
It is Christmas morning now, you know.
Doc Boy has a point there, Dad. Anytime after midnight is technically Christmas morning, you know.
Go to bed.
All right.
Pleasant dreams, Dad. It is Christmas morning.
I know that, and you know that.
I love John's like, I know that, and you know that.
They're both like briefly allying together for this common goal.
I love that they instantly become children. Like, it's early man-child comedy, I suppose.
But you also become a child again once you go back home.
Yeah,
you fall back into your old habits. You want to be waited on.
Yeah, it's like, well, no, it's time for you to pay for dinner, Mom and Dad. Or it's like, hey, I'm going to go to my room and play video games now or read comic books.
Yes, when I'm home, I'm baby.
Yeah.
Haven't you been on Twitter?
Yeah, I miss that. I miss that too. Oh, God. I like, too, the Doc Boy's happily wearing, like, childhood PJs. Like, he's infantilizing himself. I like, too, even on the morning, he's been a grouch the whole episode, but now Paul is like, now who wants to open presents? Like, woo! Like, that's fun.
And I like how he's teasing them. Yeah, it's very cute. Do you want to do chores?
Yeah. Eat breakfast or open presents. I like that gifts, other than the two at the end here, the other gifts don't really matter. It's like they just have kind of a cross dissolve, and it's like everybody's holding their gifts, but they don't really play out opening them all. I like the Doc Boy got a toy plane. Like, that's perfect because he is still a little kid. Then there's one more gift to give, which it is weirdly paced how Garfield like tugs on the mom's apron and then walks away and then comes back with it. Like, just have him pull it out from behind his back.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we don't need to see the journey to the letters.
It feels like a very realistic way of thinking of like, well, obviously Garfield can't just pull it out from his pocket. He's a naked cat, so he has to walk over to the fireplace and grab it from where he was hiding them.
One thing I forgot about was John, whatever sweater John got for Christmas does not fit him.
Oh, yeah.
He's just like swimming in it.
He seems to love it. I guess you're to assume his mom made it for him, but it was too big. And
I think moms always assume you'll grow into things even after you're done growing.
Yes, yeah, I think too. Yeah. Oh, I also like that Granny seems to have a bowling ball next to her. I think.
Yeah.
That fits with her being a rock and roll grandma.
She is a cool bowling granny.
Why, thank you, Garfield. What's this? Oh, my. Oh, my.
What are they, Grandma?
John, these are love letters your grandpa sent me when we were courting a long, long time ago. My darling, if the sea were of ink and the sky of parchment, I could not begin to write my love for you. When next we meet, oh my.
Well, what does he say, Grandma?
It is inappropriate for a lady to talk about her romances, my dear. Garfield, I don't know how you managed to find these letters. I think they are the nicest presents I could have received. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, you might say I just kind of fell into him.
It's just sweet.
It is,
yeah.
but it gets a little racy. Just like when I get my hands on you. Oh, I can't read this part.
He was DTF, that grandpa. No, and I like that the mom is too silly and innocent to be like, well, what's it say? It's like, I'm not reading more of these.
Yeah.
Shut up. Like,
it gets a little blue.
I love that Garfield did it because after hearing her give that long speech, he listened and was like, oh, then she'd really appreciate finding these old letters, wouldn't she? It's
not even about Garfield learning a lesson. It's just like Garfield just found an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Garfield did a nice thing, and not in spite of himself, or it's not like how in, say, the crappy Christmas episode of Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Oh, right.
Toad gives his skateboard to Santa Claus and learns the true meaning of Christmas. Actually, in the final clip I have, it's more like Garfield hates admitting he learned anything.
I did like that. Yeah. He admits something and he's like, get away from me.
But right before that is when Odie reveals what it is. And I do like one of my favorite little bits of character animation is how Garfield goes like, okay, what is it? Like, he doesn't know, which that feels also like taken from being given any kind of personally made present. And you're like, well, I don't know what you gave me, but you can't say you don't understand it. You have to be as nice as possible. When Garfield's scratching his own back, that's the one time he acts like a cat in this entire thing.
They give him like a cat anatomy briefly.
Yeah, his human feet go away, and it's super cute. That is, again, why I say the 83 Garfield was a perfect one, because he still looks and walks like a cat most of the time, and he's actually cute at being a cat. Garfield thanks Odie, says it's the best gift he could have received, and he hugs him. And I think, too, though, by this point, it was getting a little played out of like, in the comics, Garfield was never nice to Odie, and you had all that history going in. So when they'd have one of the specials, it'd be like Garfield learned that Odie's actually his friend, and then he hugs Odie. But by this point, he's hugged Odie at the end of like 5 specials, so it doesn't feel as unique.
In isolation, it's kind of fun, but if you've seen all the other specials, it's like, well, he always has this moment.
Then comes the final clip here, where Garfield basically repeats exactly what he says in the Christmas Day 1981 comic strip. Though no Lyman here. Lyman actually is in that comic strip.
Odie, sometimes you amaze me. This is the best present a cat could ever get. Now and then, you're something special. All right, you guys. Just permit me one sentimental moment here, will you? I have something to say. Christmas. It's not the giving. It's not the getting. It's the loving. There, I said it. Now get out of here.
And then the finale.
Good old-fashioned Christmas down on the farm.
Yeah. Hey, at least that fits the uniqueness of the setting. Nothing else in here felt like a farm song, but
we see one barn.
Yeah, but man, I love Garfield just going like, yeah, look, I said something schmaltzy. Who can go away?
We have to end the special now.
It is him talking to the audience of like, look, you made me say something nice and go out of characters, Garfield. I will now stop doing that. But it's sweet. I like that a lot. And yeah, then comes the good old fashioned Christmas song, just everybody clapping and dancing. And that song continues into an instrumental version over the credits, which was pretty great watching that and then them saying, tonight on Designing Women. And just talking up what the next ones are. Actually, wait here. I got it handy. Let me just play
I want to hear.
A double.
Tonight, Newhart's persuasive powers get a real workout over Joanna's fear of an eye doctor. In an unfortunate case of too many Santas on Designing Women. But first, musical magic with caroling camels, waltzing walruses, and those sensational California raisins. An all-new claymation Christmas celebration. Next.
This guy, no energy. Up on Designing Women. Too many Santas.
Too many Santas.
And some claymations coming next. That sounds fun.
That'll get you excited for a night of more CBS content, right? But
some 80-year-old announcer.
But man, Newhart Show and Designing Women, great shows though.
What an age.
Though Newhart didn't even do a Christmas episode. Something about an eye doctor. Come on, man. At least Designing Women did something.
I wonder if David Merkin was writing for Newhart then.
I bet you he was. Yeah, but that again, warm feelings. Even hearing that hiss of the VHS tape. Like, God, perfect. But I think. Is this one of the great Christmas specials? No, I think it's just a little short of that.
No, I mean it's just like comforting, especially if you grew up with it. It's like, again, nothing really happens. There's no tension. There's no unresolved conflict that gets resolved. It just is a bunch of like people getting along and being playful with each other and some nice like touching grandma moments, and that's basically it. And I do like it.
And it's just fun. It's just fun to hang out with Garfield and hear Lorenzo music, like just say stuff. And I think Jim Davis did a really great job of bringing like his specific childhood and experiences visiting family back on the farm to this show. And I like that personal touch. I agree. I like the human touch.
Sweet Arbuckle lore is what I'm in for.
It's really great to just keep returning to, and you can watch the perfect audio redone in a remastered-ish kind of version that's on YouTube. But for me, pulling up the videotaped off of TV in 1987 version on YouTube, I kind of preferred that.
The commercials are almost as good as the TV show.
Went straight to that Double Mint commercial right before the credits. I love that too. Just all those commercials of twins walking around eating gum. Yeah, it was so fun to go back to Garfield Christmas, celebrating Christmas in October as we record this. It was a lot of fun.
Yes,
especially.
Let's hope your Christmas is good, or whatever holiday you happen to be celebrating. It's going to be a weird one.
Yes,
we'll get through with lots of podcasts, right?
Yeah.
So many podcasts.
These podcasts are like your letters from Grandpa.
Exactly.
Consider it that way, yeah.
We're not going to get too sexy, though, unlike Grandpa's letters. But yes, if you want to support our podcast and get all these episodes 1 week at a time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there to get just that, but also sign up for $5 and you'll get everything behind the $5 paywall that is like a billion podcasts, frankly. I can't even count them all, but there's so much going on behind the scenes there. And we also have Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 2. It's been rolling out for a while and it's about to come to a close at the end of 2020, but you can catch up by signing up for the Patreon right now. And we also have things like Talking Mission Hill, the other Talking Futurama episodes, Talking of the Hill, just so many more things going on, like interviews, deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons, but also sign up for $10 a month. You get all the $5 stuff plus one extra long podcast once a month just for patrons of patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. What is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon movie. $10 and up subscribers at the premium level. They get all that $5 stuff. And then once a month, they get an extra long podcast like this, except we talk about an animated feature film instead of a Christmas special. Recent ones have included Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Before that, we did Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and tons more. You'll have over 100 hours of podcast if you sign up for it. And if you do it this month, you'll get to hear our December one, whatever that is. Currently undecided at the time of this recording, but whatever it is, I'm sure it's great because our wonderful patrons picked it. So please consider going up to the $10 level to get all the best stuff out of patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. Find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast, by the way, is Retronauts. That is a classic gaming podcast about old video games. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts for 2 full-length bonus episodes every month at patreon.com/Retronauts. Henry, what about you?
You follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter at HENEREYG. I am certainly, I've been tweeting more about Garfield lately because of that, of working on this, but my tweets are fun. Follow me there. And if you're following me and Bob on Twitter, you really should be also following at Talk Simpsons Pod, the official Twitter account of this podcast and our sister podcast, Talking Simpsons. Anytime new things go live on the free feed, on the Patreon, polls, any of that stuff, you know about it first if you follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter. So please do that today.
Thank you so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next time for more Christmas fun with South Park, A Very Crappy Christmas, and we'll see you then.
Let's have a good old-fashioned Christmas down on the farm. A little overeating never did you any harm. Let's open up the presents, eat a turkey or two. It's a good old-fashioned Christmas. You're a lady who. It's a good old-fashioned Christmas down on the farm. Let's stoke up the fire to keep our tootsies warm. Let's kick off the rooftop and sing a song or two. Let's do this again next year. You're a lady who.
To learn more about the celebration of Christmas, the Library of Congress suggests these books: Celebrating Christmas Around the World by Herbert H. Wernicke, The Christmas Tree Book by Philip V. Snyder, and Guinness Book of Christmas, edited by Tom Hartman. These and many other informative books are waiting for you in your local library and bookstore. Visit them. They'll be happy to help you read more about it.